We're heading straight into, well, a really mind-bending mystery.
Yeah, surrounding the Pyramid of Khafre.
Exactly. On the Giza Plateau. Recent scans, they've hinted at something truly massive lurking beneath this ancient wonder.
And the implications for, how we understand the past, potentially enormous.
Absolutely. So today we're going to unpack the initial shockwaves from these claims.
Right. We're drawing on insights from places like Megalithomania UK, Danny Jones, History, Metatron on YouTube. They've all been covering this.
Yeah, lots of discussion there. Our mission, basically, is what exactly is being claimed about what's under Khafre. Then we'll explore the different ways to interpret this data, some more, let's say, conventional.
And others hinting at, well, lost worlds, maybe.
Right. And ultimately, what could these discoveries, if they pan out, mean for our picture of ancient civilizations?
Okay, let's dive right in.
So, where did this incredible news even originate?
Well, the story really broke with a press conference in Italy.
Italy, okay.
Yeah, by the Khafre SAR team, that's Filippo Bion, Corrado Malanga, and Armando May.
Right.
They announced that using SAR technology, that's synthetic aperture radar, they'd found some pretty remarkable structures beneath Khafre's pyramid.
Remarkable is kind of an understatement. What specifically did they claim to have detected?
So their initial findings suggested 5 chambers inside the Pyramid of Khafre itself.
Okay, within the pyramid.
Yeah, which they compared to the relieving chambers in the Great Pyramid. Familiar ground, maybe? But the real bombshell, that was the claim of 8 vertical shafts. Or pipes, tubes, wells, they used a few terms, plunging straight down.
How far down?
At least 648 meters.
Whoa. 648 meters.
Yeah, straight down beneath the pyramid. And get this, they seem to have spiral features.
Spiral?
What?
Like staircases.
That's how the team interprets them, yeah, as staircases.
Staircases descending over half a kilometer. That's almost unfathomable. Where do these alleged shafts lead?
Well, the Khafre SAR team believes these 8 pathways, they converge.
Okay. Into 2 substantial, roughly cube-shaped structures, big ones, like 80 cubic meters each.
And their interpretation
is that these are part of something much larger, a lost city, or what they've specifically termed the Halls of Amenti.
Halls of Amenti.
Located deep beneath the Giza Plateau.
That name, Halls of Amenti, it definitely has a certain mystique to it. What's the background there?
Well, Amenti is ancient Egyptian for hidden, and it's deeply tied into their mythology. It represents the realm of the dead, the underworld.
Right.
So the team linking their potential find to this legendary place at Giza, it definitely taps into that long-held fascination with what secrets the sands might still hold.
Okay, so they use this SAR technology. From satellites, you said.
Precisely.
For someone like me who isn't a tech expert, how does that actually work to see so deep underground?
Yeah, good question. The key thing is it's SAR from space. Imagine a satellite sending out radio waves.
Okay.
But not just one ping. It sends out many, from slightly different positions as it orbits.
Right. Then, by combining all those reflected signals back, like putting together lots of slightly different puzzle pieces.
You get a clearer picture.
Exactly. They can build a much more detailed image of what's beneath the surface than just a simple radar could.
And that's why they didn't need permission to be, digging around on site.
That's a really significant point, yeah. No need for on-site survey permission for this initial detection phase.
And the evidence was presented as these tomographic images. So these aren't like regular photos, right? What are we actually looking at?
Think of it more like a medical CT scan, but for the Earth.
Okay, like slices.
Yeah, kind of. It's a representation of different densities at different depths. They use colors to show variations in what the radar waves bounced off.
So what do the colors mean?
Generally, darker blue areas are interpreted as representing either denser material or, importantly, voids, empty spaces.
Right.
While brighter colors are said to indicate the presence of other structures, maybe walls or something solid.
And the team argues these images clearly show those vertical shafts and the big cubic things way down below.
That's their interpretation of the data, yes.
Now, I've heard some chatter, skepticism maybe, about how deep this kind of radar can actually penetrate effectively. Is that a fair challenge?
It is a very pertinent point, yeah. Think of it like trying to see something really deep in murky water using sonar.
Okay.
The deeper you go, the more the signal can get scattered or weakened.
Yeah.
It just gets harder to get a really sharp, clear picture of specific shapes at great depth.
So claiming over 600 meters.
That claim, especially with satellite-based SAR, is definitely something many in the scientific community are approaching with, let's say, caution.
Right. There are questions.
Definitely. Questions about how clearly defined anything could really be at that depth and whether the data might have other explanations, maybe just variations in the rock, the geology itself.
You mentioned a paper from 2022 from this team.
Mm-hmm.
How does that fit in with these newer, much deeper claims?
That's an important distinction to make. In that earlier paper, the Khafre SAR team did discuss anomalies they detected inside the second pyramid.
Inside Khafre, okay.
Yeah, suggesting they could be chambers, maybe similar to the relieving chambers in the Great Pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
But Fluebel himself has clarified that this previous work was focused purely on the pyramid's internal structure.
Not underground.
Not searching depth underground, no. So these recent announcements about the 8 vertical shafts and those large structures hundreds of meters below, that's all new. It goes way beyond their published 2022 research.
Okay, so we have these extraordinary claims, some inherent skepticism about the tech at those depths. Did the team offer any kind of, proof of concept? Did they show their SAR could actually detect known underground features?
Yes, they did try to provide a comparative example.
What was it?
They presented their SAR mapping of the so-called Tomb of Osiris, also known as the Osiris Shaft.
Which is right there on the Giza Plateau, right? A known structure.
Exactly. It's a known underground structure. It has 3 distinct levels. There's a water table at the bottom.
And they mapped it with SAR.
They showed how their SAR technology was able to map these known features, the different levels, even the water. They presented this as evidence that their tech can accurately detect what lies beneath the surface.
Okay, tell us a bit more about this Osiris Shaft. When's it from, roughly? And where exactly is it?
Well, the oldest evidence found inside it suggests it dates back to around 1500 BC. Maybe earlier construction, but that's the solid dating.
And its location?
It's located beneath the causeway, the path that connects Khafre's pyramid, the second pyramid, down to the Sphinx and its valley temple.
Interesting spot. Anything else found in there?
Oh, yeah. Several sarcophagi made of incredibly hard igneous rock have been found in the middle section of the shaft. Adds to the whole enigma.
So, okay, if their SAR can map the Osiris Shaft, does that automatically mean their much deeper, much more complex findings under Khafre are also accurate?
Not necessarily, no. That's a crucial point. Well, successfully mapping a known, relatively shallow structure like the Osiris Shaft is definitely a positive sign. It shows their tech has some capability for subsurface detection.
Right.
But it's really important to remember that the findings beneath Khafre, the really deep stuff, are currently just data and interpretations of that data and reconstructions based on those interpretations.
Right. It hasn't been checked by others yet.
Exactly. It hasn't been subjected to rigorous peer review by other experts in the field, nor has it been independently verified, through other methods or obviously any kind of physical investigation yet.
So the Osiris Shaft is like a potential benchmark, but doesn't prove the deeper claims on its own.
Precisely. It suggests the tech might work, but the much deeper, much more complex claims about what's under Khafre, they really require further independent scrutiny.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Because while these potential megastructures, capture the imagination, there have also been more, conventional explanations put forward. One that keeps popping up is the idea that these things they detected could actually be ancient mining shafts. What's your take on that?
Yeah, the hypothesis that these might be ancient mining shafts is, it's a very plausible alternative. It definitely fits with what we know about ancient activities.
Mining at Giza.
Ancient civilizations, including the Egyptians, were absolutely involved in extracting resources from the earth. Those vertical shafts the SAR team detected, they could potentially represent access points to old underground mining operations.
But the sheer depth you mentioned, 648 meters, that just feels incredibly deep for ancient mining, doesn't it?
It does.
And what about the huge challenges? Dealing with water flooding in, ventilation, light. How would they manage that so far down?
You're right. 648 meters would be truly exceptional for ancient mining. It definitely pushes the boundaries of what we typically associate with their capabilities.
But you think it's still possible?
Well, it's important to remember that our understanding of ancient tech, their ingenuity, it's constantly expanding. And regarding those challenges you mentioned, water, air, light, ancient miners actually developed surprisingly sophisticated methods to deal with them.
Really? Such as, it's hard to picture managing that stuff without modern tech.
Well, let's look at the ancient Romans and Greeks, for example. We have pretty good records of their mining practices.
Okay.
They knew how to find ore deposits by looking at surface signs, soil color, certain minerals, geological layers. They also used horizontal tunnels, called adits, for exploration.
Right.
And once they started digging vertical shafts, they often created networks of horizontal tunnels branching off, following the valuable veins of ore.
Okay, but what about the water? Digging that deep, you're bound to hit groundwater, right?
Yeah.
You just flood everything.
Absolutely. And this is where their ingenuity really shines. The Romans and Greeks, and there's evidence suggesting even the Egyptians before them, had solutions for water drainage.
Like what? Buckets.
Sometimes, yes, simple bailing, but also they dig drainage adits. These were tunnels dug at a slight slope below the working level so gravity would just carry the water out.
Clever.
And when that wasn't enough, they used mechanical devices, water lifting wheels, and even the Egyptian screw.
Oh, wait, the Egyptian screw? You mean the Archimedes screw?
Well, that's the fascinating twist. Archimedes likely encountered it in Egypt and then popularized it. Evidence suggests the Egyptians may have invented it much earlier for irrigation and potentially mine drainage.
No way. The Egyptians invented that screw.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, what about air? Down in these deep, narrow shafts, surely the air would get foul, unbreathable.
Definitely a critical problem. Ventilation was key.
So how'd they manage?
The ancients used techniques like sinking parallel shafts.
2 shafts. Why?
To create a natural airflow through convection. Warmer, stale air rises up one shaft.
Pulling cooler, fresh air down the other.
Exactly. Right? They even had ways to test the air quality using lamps, if the flame flickered out.
Bad air, lack of oxygen, or dangerous gases.
Precisely. Time to get out or improve ventilation.
And light, working in total darkness, hundreds of meters down.
Must have been incredibly tough. Their main light source was oil lamps.
Just basic lamps.
Pretty much. Although archaeological finds suggest that sometimes these lamps were even mounted on the miners' heads.
Like early hard hats with lights.
Kind of. Similar principle to modern mining headlamps. So, while it wasn't daylight, they did have ways to see down there.
Huh. So, the idea that these detected structures under copper could be mining shafts, even at that incredible depth. It's not completely out of the question, then.
It's certainly a viable hypothesis that needs serious consideration. Think about how important metals were: copper, tin for bronze, iron, gold, silver. The strategic importance was immense. So while 648 meters is still, exceptional.
If you could rewrite the history books on ancient mining tech.
Exactly. If these are mining shafts, it would force us to dramatically revise our understanding of their capabilities. We even see early copper working, though maybe not smelting initially, way back in southeastern Turkey.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What about the ground itself? The Giza Plateau. It has a specific geology, right? Could these scans just be picking up natural stuff?
That's another absolutely crucial angle to consider, yes.
What kind of rock are we talking about?
The Giza Plateau is mostly sedimentary rock, limestone primarily, and this type of rock is inherently porous.
Meaning water gets through it easily.
Yes, and over vast amounts of time, water erosion can create fissures, cavities, caves. It's just what happens with limestone landscapes.
And these natural cave systems often follow patterns, right?
They do. On the Giza Plateau, they generally tend to run in kind of northwest to southeast direction.
And we actually know for a fact that there are existing cave systems under the plateau, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. The most well-known is probably the one called the Tomb of the Birds.
Tomb of the Birds.
Yeah, officially it's designated NC2, or North Cliff 2. And interestingly, its known entrance today is actually located beneath a modern restaurant on the plateau.
Beneath a restaurant? Wow.
Yeah. Our colleague Andrew Collins has done a ton of research on this particular cave system. Its existence absolutely confirms that there are significant natural voids, natural hollows beneath the plateau.
So, bottom line, is it plausible that the SAR scans are just detecting these natural cave systems?
Sure.
Or maybe caves that ancient people found and maybe, modified or used?
It is certainly quite plausible, yes.
What?
And intriguingly,
What?
back in 1977, the Stanford Research Institute did some studies around the second pyramid, around Khafre, and they actually detected hollows and cavities near the northwestern and southeastern corners.
Really?
Yeah.
The same general areas being discussed now?
Pretty much, yeah. Areas that align with some of the current discussions. So these earlier findings strongly suggest that natural voids do exist in the subsurface there.
So the SAR data could just be reflecting those, or maybe modified caves.
It's a definite possibility. It could be picking up on these natural features or perhaps natural spaces that were later adapted or expanded rather than entirely artificial, purpose-built megastructures dug from scratch.
Okay, let's circle back to the mythology side of things. The Kafir-Sar team themselves call these potential structures the Halls of Amenti. And our sources also mention these ancient beliefs connecting the pyramids to figures like Hermes or Enoch. How do these different threads weave together?
It gets fascinating here. There were these ancient people, the Sabians of Haran.
Haran, that's in southeastern Turkey, right? Near Göbekli Tepe.
Exactly, a very ancient and important place. The Sabians held this unique reverence for the Giza pyramids. They saw them as tombs, basically, final resting places of their own revered ancestors or figures.
Who specifically?
They considered the Great Pyramid, Khufu's, to be the tomb of Agatha Daimon, who they linked with the Egyptian god Seth.
Okay.
And the second pyramid, Khafre's, they saw as the tomb of Hermes.
Hermes, like the Greek god.
Well, yes, but also equated by the Hebrews with the biblical figure Enoch, a figure associated with wisdom, writing, secrets.
And they believed Hermes, or Enoch, was actually in the second pyramid.
They believed he resided there, yes, along with the legendary emerald tablets.
Ah, the emerald tablets. Always popping up in these mysteries, supposedly containing secrets of creation.
Profound secrets, yes. That's the legend. The belief they were within the second pyramid is largely rooted in these Sabian traditions and later esoteric interpretations.
Is there any actual, physical evidence or hint towards that?
Yeah.
Or is it pure myth?
Well, there's no direct archaeological proof, of course, but some Egyptologists have wondered if the secret chamber talked about in these traditions might be perhaps a metaphor.
A metaphor for what?
Maybe a hidden area, perhaps beneath the pyramid, with walls decorated with green pigments like faience tiles or paint, and inscribed with very early versions of the pyramid texts.
So emeralds might just mean green walls with texts.
It's one speculative interpretation, yeah. But it highlights the enduring mystique around Khafre's pyramid and the stories clinging to it.
And this connection back to Haran, and you mentioned Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, these incredibly ancient sites in Turkey. How could they possibly relate to Giza?
Well, Haran itself was likely a major center for knowledge transmission for millennia.
Okay.
And it probably received influences from even earlier, truly groundbreaking sites nearby, like Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. These are central to what's called the Taş Tepeler culture.
Taş Tepeler. How old are we talking?
Astonishingly old, flourishing as far back as maybe 9600 BC.
Wow. Over 11,000 years ago.
Exactly. Many consider this the earliest known post-Ice Age civilization, and they showed this incredible sophistication in monumental rock architecture. Karahan Tepe has been called maybe the world's first rock architecture.
So are you suggesting a potential link between this incredibly ancient culture in Turkey and the much later pyramids and mysteries in Egypt?
It's a compelling hypothesis that researchers like Andrew Collins explore. The Taş Tepe culture seems to mysteriously fade around 8000 BC.
Where did they go?
We don't know for sure, but it's certainly plausible that their knowledge, their beliefs, maybe even some of their people migrated, spread out to other regions.
Including Egypt.
Possibly. We know there were sophisticated settlements near Giza, like at Helwan, dating back as far as 9000 BC.
That early?
Yes. And there's even some evidence, hints, of early cut granite blocks there, which is pretty advanced for the time.
So this raises a huge question.
Right. Could the creators, or maybe later discoverers and modifiers, of any underground structures at Giza, could they have had connections, direct or indirect, back to this much earlier Taş Tepeler culture and their advanced skills with stone?
It suggests a potentially far deeper, more interconnected ancient history than we usually think about.
Absolutely. A much longer timeline of sophisticated knowledge.
And the mythological aspect goes even deeper too, doesn't it? With Egyptian creation myths, this idea of an underworld.
Exactly. Egyptian creation stories often talk about the land emerging from primordial waters, right? Nun, the watery abyss. And Egypt is often positioned right at the center of this creation event, the first land, the primeval mound.
And wasn't there something about 8 gods involved?
Yes. The mythology of Hermopolis speaks of the Ogdode. 8 primeval deities, 4 pairs, usually depicted as frog-headed males and snake-headed females, associated with the very active creation out of the chaos.
8 deities. 8 shafts claimed under Khafre. Probably just a coincidence, but interesting.
It is interesting numerology, yeah. And then you have the Sphinx.
The guardian.
Long interpreted as a guardian figure, yes. Possibly standing sentinel at the entrance to an underworld realm. Some researchers even argue for earlier interpretations where the Sphinx might have had a more canine, maybe jackal-like form, like Anubis, a guide to the underworld.
Right. And the halls of Amenti itself, the mythological realm.
In some traditions, this underworld, the realm of the dead, was said to be guarded by no fewer than 72 deities.
72.
Yeah. It adds another layer of mythological resonance, another layer of intrigue to why the Caffrey SAR team specifically chose that name, Halls of Amenti, for their potential discovery.
It's definitely clear these claims have ignited a lot of excitement, but also, as we discussed, a healthy dose of skepticism. What's the general reaction been like in the archaeological and Egyptological communities?
Oh, it's definitely generated considerable interest and a really wide range of responses.
I bet.
Online especially, you see everything. From, really enthusiastic endorsements, people immediately spinning out new theories, to, on the other end, outright dismissal of the findings, usually based on those perceived limitations of the SAR technology at the claimed depths.
There's no real mix.
Yeah, it's a natural and necessary part of the scientific process, really. It highlights just how much these ancient mysteries still grip us, but also underscores that fundamental need for rigorous evidence.
And what about the official side, the Egyptian authorities? Has they weighed in on these claims?
Well, based on past experiences and just general national sentiment, it's highly likely the Egyptian authorities are approaching these Italian-led discoveries with a degree of caution.
Why is that? National pride.
Partly, perhaps, and maybe some historical sensitivity about foreign-led excavations, thinking back to figures like Howard Carter and the controversies.
Okay.
Plus, the fact remains that the Scan Pyramids team, they used a completely different technology, muon tomography, which detects density variations.
And they didn't find these specific deep structures.
Yeah. They haven't reported finding these deep vertical shafts or large chambers, no. Now, their research might have had a slightly different focus, looking more for voids within the pyramids themselves,
Right.
but it still adds to the official skepticism. The prevailing feeling seems to be emphasizing that crucial need for independent verification, peer review, before any of these claims can really be accepted as established fact.
So, looking ahead, what kind of future research or investigation could actually help clarify what's truly under Caffrey's pyramid? Assuming permissions are granted, of course.
Well, other non-intrusive methods could be tried. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR, is one possibility.
Does that go as deep?
Generally not as deep as the SAR claims, but it can give very detailed images of shallower subsurface features. It would definitely require permits from the Egyptian authorities, though.
Mm-hmm. And individuals are still researching this.
Oh, yes. Andrew Collins, who we've mentioned a couple of times, he's actively continuing his research into the Giza cave systems and these new claims. We can probably expect updates, maybe some reveals at upcoming conferences.
And his book?
His book, Beneath the Pyramids, is apparently being republished soon with new information specifically related to these discoveries.
Interesting. Any other avenues?
Well, Megalithomania is even organizing a tour to Egypt, specifically focusing on exploring these claims on the ground, looking at the context.
And it feels like the research landscape really extends beyond just Egypt now, doesn't it? Back to those sites in Turkey.
Absolutely. Continued digging, continued exploration at those incredible Taş Tepeler sites in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, and newer ones like Sabers. That's incredibly important.
Why? How does that connect?
Because these sites are revealing just how sophisticated these very ancient cultures were. Significant underground structures, intricate carvings. It's radically changing our understanding of their capabilities, their beliefs 10, 11, 12,000 years ago.
Any specific finds that seem relevant?
Well, the discovery of that weird spiraling magnetic anomaly right at the heart of the main enclosure at Göbekli Tepe.
Magnetic anomaly.
Yeah. It hints at potential energy-related stuff, or maybe complex ritualistic purposes we don't understand yet. And the way statues were deliberately broken at places like Karahan Tepe, maybe some kind of ceremonial decommissioning. All this ongoing research in Turkey could eventually provide a much broader, much richer context for interpreting whatever mysteries we do end up finding at Giza, whether natural or artificial.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. We've got these incredibly intriguing claims, based on SAR data, of potentially monumental structures deep beneath Khafre's pyramid.
Right, possibly linked by the discoverers to the legendary halls of Amenti.
And we've explored a whole range of interpretations, from, vast, deliberately excavated chambers,
to the possibility of ancient mining operations pushed to unprecedented depths.
or maybe even naturally occurring cave systems, perhaps modified or utilized later by people.
And we've touched on those fascinating, maybe even crucial connections back to the very ancient and sophisticated Toz-Tepler culture in Turkey.
And how these ancient mythological narratives, these stories of underworlds and guardians, seem to resonate so strongly with these modern discoveries.
Precisely. For me, some of the real aha moments in digging into this, it's seeing those potential parallels between the scan data, however interpreted, and those ancient descriptions of the underworld.
Yeah.
And just the surprising level of sophistication we maybe need to consider for ancient mining techniques. The idea they might predate and even influence later Greek and Roman methods. That's mind-blowing.
And the timeline. Connecting Toz-Tepler's advanced stonework, potentially stretching towards later Egypt, suggests a much deeper, more complex story of knowledge transfer than we usually imagine.
Definitely a deeper, more interconnected ancient world.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to keep hammering this home.
Right.
We are still in the very early stages of understanding these claims. Independent verification is essential. Rigorous science needs to happen.
Absolutely. Skepticism is warranted alongside open-mindedness.
But it definitely sparks that sense of wonder, doesn't it? Could these scans, whatever they ultimately show, be a kind of modern echo of ancient stories?
A tangible link, maybe?
Yeah.
Still enigmatic, sure, but a link to a past we're only just beginning to really comprehend, regardless of the final explanation for what's actually under the sand.
Yeah.
And this leaves us with a powerful question, maybe for you, our listener. What other hidden knowledge might still lie out there, waiting to be uncovered? Around the world.
Knowledge that could potentially challenge our long-held assumptions, but just how ingenious, how capable ancient civilizations really were.
Sands of time. They guard countless secrets, you know?
Mm.
And perhaps, just perhaps, we're on the cusp of a new era of discovery, one that might fundamentally reshape our understanding of human history and maybe even our place within it.